President Donald Trump has confirmed that he will travel to both Israel and Egypt on Monday to discuss the future of Gaza, a trip that could define not just his presidency, but the course of Middle Eastern politics for years to come. His visit will focus on how Gaza will be rebuilt, who will govern it, and how the fragile peace can hold after one of the most devastating wars in recent memory. Since the ceasefire took effect, about 500,000 Palestinians have begun returning to their homes, many of which have been reduced to rubble. The ceasefire, brokered through weeks of tense negotiations between Israel, Hamas, and several Arab mediators, has brought a rare stillness to the region, a silence that carries both relief and uncertainty. For the first time in 2 years, the skies over Gaza are quiet. But beneath the surface, the world is watching to see if this peace can endure. On the ground, the United States has taken a direct role in ensuring the ceasefire's stability. Steve Witkoff, President Trump's special envoy for the Middle East, recently visited Gaza accompanied by Israel Defense Forces Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, and U.S. Central Command Commander Admiral Brad Cooper. Their mission was to observe Israel's partial troop withdrawal and ensure that the ceasefire lines were being honored by all sides. After his visit, Admiral Cooper released a statement that quickly reverberated through diplomatic circles. Just returned from a visit inside Gaza to inform how we are moving forward to establish a SITCOM civil-military coordination center that will synchronize activities to support post-conflict stabilization. America's sons and daughters, he writes, in uniform are answering the call to deliver peace in the Middle East in support of the Commander-in-Chief's direction in this historic moment. This great effort will be achieved with no US boots on the ground in Gaza. That final line, no US boots on the ground, was designed to reassure both domestic audiences and regional powers wary of foreign occupation. Yet, make no mistake, the United States is now deeply embedded in the mechanics of this ceasefire. Senior officials revealed that a breakthrough occurred when Admiral Cooper told negotiators that the US could establish a ceasefire monitoring base within 2.5 weeks. That commitment convinced skeptical negotiators that Washington was serious about enforcing peace on the ground, even without deploying combat troops. President Trump himself has been directly involved in the talks, calling negotiators late into the night, pushing both Israeli and Arab officials to make compromises that had eluded diplomats for years. He has described the deal as the most difficult peace I've ever made, and aides say he has spent weeks personally managing every detail. The scale of the devastation that led to this moment cannot be overstated. Tens of thousands of Palestinians have been killed. Entire neighborhoods have vanished. Famine and disease have stalked Gaza's northern regions. And while Israel claims it achieved its objective of dismantling Hamas's military infrastructure, the cost has been catastrophic. Don't forget, the president remarked recently, you had October 7th, which was a horrible day, 1,200 people killed, but Hamas has lost 58,000 people. That's big retribution. That's big retribution. People understand that. For months, negotiators met quietly in Cairo, Doha, and Washington. The breakthrough came only when Secretary of State Marco Rubio informed the president that the final sticking points had been overcome. In the end, it was Trump's leverage, his pressure on both Israel and Arab capitals, that forced the parties to sign. Under the terms of the deal, Hamas agreed not to stage any humiliating public ceremonies involving hostages before their release. All living Israeli hostages are expected to be freed by 6 o'clock Monday morning, hours before the president lands in Jerusalem to address the Knesset. Some of the remains of deceased hostages, however, may not yet be returned, as Hamas reportedly does not know their precise locations. As part of the first stage of the agreement, 1,700 Palestinian prisoners are set to be released, including 250 serving life sentences. It is a bitter pill for many Israelis, but officials say it is a necessary step to build trust before the next phase of the peace process. Trump's visit to Israel will be both symbolic and strategic. He is expected to deliver an address to the Israeli parliament, a speech aimed at reassuring the Israeli public that the United States will ensure Hamas's eventual disarmament and oversee Gaza's reconstruction. The president will then fly to Cairo for meetings with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Qatari envoys to discuss the security and financial framework for rebuilding Gaza. Analysts describe this moment as nothing short of historic. Jennifer Griffin, a veteran national security correspondent who has covered the Middle East for 3 decades, put it plainly, "I have not seen anything like it in my 30 years. It would not have come about without the leadership of President Trump." She explained that Trump seized a rare opportunity, a convergence of war fatigue, regional pressure, and a weakened Hamas leadership, to force a comprehensive truce. After a controversial Israeli strike in Qatar nearly killed senior Hamas figures, regional anger surged. Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt pressured Hamas to accept a ceasefire. Sensing that window, Trump met Arab leaders at the UN General Assembly, then flew back to Washington to host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In that pivotal weekend meeting, Netanyahu reportedly apologized to the Emir of Qatar for the near-fatal strike, a gesture that diffused tensions and unlocked the path to negotiation. Within days, Trump sent his envoys Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff to Sharm el-Sheikh, where Egyptian, Turkish, and Israeli security chiefs hammered out the final text of the agreement. By Wednesday, the deal was sealed. In less than 72 hours, the situation on the ground shifted from endless war to cautious peace. Now the world is waiting to see whether the second phase, Gaza's disarmament and reconstruction, can begin. President Trump's team insists that the ceasefire will be strictly monitored by an international coalition under U.S. Central Command supervision. American and Israeli officials have made it clear that Hamas will no longer control the Gaza Strip once the full plan is implemented. But major questions remain unresolved. Who will govern Gaza once Hamas disarms? Will Israel recognize a pathway to Palestinian statehood? And can Arab leaders deliver on the promises they made in private? So far, the signs are promising. Several Arab governments, including Egypt, Jordan, and Qatar, have signaled strong support for the ceasefire and expressed willingness to fund Gaza's reconstruction. Gulf states are expected to pledge billions in aid during next week's donor conference in Cairo. There is unity among Arab leaders who want to end the Gaza war, one regional diplomat said. They want to move on to trade, investment, and stability, not another generation of conflict. Yet even those backing the plan admit that the coming months will be perilous. The deal's second phase, disarmament, governance, and reconstruction, is the most difficult. No one yet knows whether Hamas will truly lay down its arms or whether other militant factions will fill the vacuum. There is still no consensus on who will govern Gaza, the Palestinian Authority, an interim Arab-led administration, or a newly formed technocratic body. Israeli officials, too, are divided. When asked whether Israel would accept a future Palestinian state, the Israeli foreign minister declined to give any indication. For Arab leaders, that ambiguity is troubling. At this point in time, one senior official observed, there's not a clear Palestinian leader who can guide Gaza toward a state. Even with these uncertainties, many see this ceasefire as a genuine turning point, a moment when both sides, exhausted by destruction, have finally chosen pragmatism over pride. One analyst summed it up bluntly, they're all tired of fighting. The president's supporters argue that his credibility has been key to the breakthrough. Despite being one of the most polarizing figures in global politics, Trump commands attention and, crucially, fear. One commentator put it this way, he's calling in, he's up late at night, he's working UN, he's bringing Netanyahu to the White House. It's all hands on deck. This guy does not stop working, and they're all a little bit afraid of him. And that helps. Trump's envoys credit the groundwork laid during his first administration, when the Abraham Accords normalized relations between Israel and several Arab states. That foundation of trust, particularly with the UAE and Bahrain, made it easier for regional powers to back his Gaza initiative. Jared Kushner, who served as the architect of those accords, is once again at the heart of the talks, quietly advising Trump's team alongside Witkoff. Behind the scenes, Admiral Cooper's coordination with both Israeli and Arab militaries has been instrumental. The newly formed Civil Military Coordination Center, he announced, will serve as the operational hub for monitoring the ceasefire and directing aid into Gaza. According to defense officials, the center will include officers from the US, Israel, Egypt, and Turkey, as well as UN and NGO liaisons. No American combat troops will enter Gaza, but small US teams will assist in satellite surveillance, deconfliction and logistics from bases in Israel and the Sinai Peninsula. Approximately 200 US personnel have already arrived in Israel for this purpose. Their presence signals Washington's determination to ensure compliance without being drawn into the conflict itself. Phase 2, which will unfold over the coming months, aims to achieve disarmament, stabilize governance, and launch massive reconstruction efforts. Experts estimate that Gaza's rebuilding could cost up to $70 billion and take more than a decade. More than 75% of its infrastructure has been destroyed. Clean water, electricity, hospitals and housing remain scarce. Aid agencies are preparing for what one described as the largest humanitarian reconstruction in modern history. But humanitarian organizations warn that without political stability, reconstruction will stall. Many still remember the failure of previous ceasefires that collapsed before rebuilding could begin. You can't pour concrete over instability, one aid coordinator said. You need governance, security, and international oversight first. That oversight may come in the form of the proposed Gaza International Transitional Authority, a joint Arab international administration that would govern Gaza temporarily. Early reports suggest that Egypt, Turkey and Qatar will provide security personnel, while the European Union and United States would fund reconstruction. There is even speculation that former British Prime Minister Tony Blair could serve as a transitional advisor or chairman of a board of peace. President Trump's upcoming trip will seek to finalize those arrangements. In Jerusalem, he will meet Israeli lawmakers and security officials to assure them that Hamas's disarmament will proceed under strict supervision. In Cairo, he will meet Arab and European leaders to secure long-term funding commitments. This ceasefire is now being described as the most significant Middle East breakthrough since the Camp David Accords, but it remains extraordinarily fragile. Any miscalculation, a rogue rocket, a political provocation, a mistrustful military could reignite the war within days. Even so, for now, optimism has returned to the region. The images of displaced families walking back through the ruins of their neighborhoods have stirred global emotion. Many Palestinians describe it as bittersweet, a homecoming shadowed by loss. Yet, for the first time in years, they are breathing air untainted by smoke and fear. Observers note that the situation in Gaza is only one part of a broader realignment in the Middle East. Israel's recent coordinated strikes on Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iranian nuclear facilities, all supported by US intelligence, have dramatically shifted the balance of power. Those operations weakened Iran's regional proxies and created new momentum for diplomacy. This is a moment in time that does not come often, one senior official said. Arab leaders would like to see the Gaza war ended so that they can move on to building, not fighting. Still, peace will depend on whether the ceasefire's political promises translate into lasting change. Disarmament and governance are only the first tests. The ultimate test will be whether ordinary Gazans see improvements in their daily lives, whether water runs again, schools reopen and families rebuild their homes. Back in Washington, aides say Trump is aware that his legacy now hangs on Gaza. His allies already refer to the agreement as the Trump plan, and supporters have begun comparing it to historical deals like the Oslo Accords. Critics, however, warn that the plan could fail if it sidelines Palestinian political institutions or imposes American-driven solutions without local legitimacy. As one commentator put it, peace made by exhaustion can just as easily unravel. The real test, they argue, will come not in speeches or ceremonies, but in the weeks and months when frustrations inevitably rise. For now, the focus is on the next 72 hours. If all hostages are released, if Israel continues its withdrawal, and if Hamas refrains from violating the ceasefire, the peace will hold. President Trump's arrival in Jerusalem on Monday will mark the symbolic beginning of Gaza's reconstruction and a new, uncertain chapter for the Middle East. Whether this fragile peace endures will depend not just on leaders, but on the people themselves, Israelis and Palestinians, who, after 2 years of bloodshed, must learn to coexist again. The world has seen many ceasefires come and go, but few with stakes this high. For President Trump, This may be his most defining diplomatic moment. In his own words, this is the most difficult peace I've ever made, and perhaps for the Middle East, it will be the most consequential peace in a generation.